Welcome to week 2 of the Music of the Beatles here on Coursera. With this introductory video, I just want to give you a sense of what some of the issues are that we'll be following throughout the lectures of this week. We're mostly going to spend our time thinking about 1964 and the two big albums that were released in 1964, A Hard Day's Night and Beatles for Sale, and some of the singles that came out during this period, 1964 too. Some of the main points that we'll hit during the course of this week have to do with the Beatles' success in early 1964, actually into January and then February of 1964, their success in the United States, and then after that, worldwide, and the significance of that and what that means and all the context around that. I will characterize the album A Hard Day's Night as being an album that really is, in many ways, the high point, the epitome of the Beatles as craftsperson approach. That is, as pop songwriters, as pop musicians, this is, I think, the album in which they get that most highly perfected. And then the album that follows that, Beatles for Sale, I'll characterize as a kind of a transition album where the Beatles are already not satisfied with staying in a place that they've achieved with A Hard Day's Night. In some ways, are going back to their roots and looking for new influences and a new way forward, moving more toward being artists in the sense that we'll see in a more full-blown way in weeks 3, 4, 5, and really for the rest of the course. Now we'll really begin to follow John and Paul as songwriters, individual songwriters. A little bit later in the course, we'll spend a lot more time following George, but for this week, we'll spend a lot of time following John and Paul as individual songwriters. They're still working together pretty closely, but and so there's a lot of similarities, but we really want to sort of begin that trail because there will be some important divergence as we go forward in the weeks coming. We'll also talk a little bit about the Beatles as songwriters for others and how all of that came about and what the context around that is. We want to spend some time at the very end of this week's lecture talking about Brian Epstein's pop empire, give some more attention to Brian Epstein, sometimes overlooked as a part of the entire Beatles phenomenon. But had it not been for Brian, in many ways the Beatles may not have been the successful act that they ended up being. And then we'll also spend some time talking about George Martin as a top pop producer out of the UK and some of the ways in which his career unfolded in 1964 into 1965. So, having outlined where we're going to go this week, let's dig right in with the next video. The Beatles are coming.